Hey guys, in this video I'll show you a 1-bar heavy attack sorcerer build, which utilizes subclassing, and parses up to 120k DPS. This is an update to an older build. First I'll cover the changes you need to make if you've already been using it, and then I'll go through the full build from scratch, so if you're new to this build, skip to the timestamp shown on the screen. Update 47 nerfed Grim Focus and both of its morphs, nerfed Bound Aegis, nerfed Highland Sentinel, and nerfed Rakat Void Mantle, by changing the way it calculates bonuses. This change in calculation caused a shift in which gear is best. For example, Ansul, while still being decent, is not the top option anymore. Infallible Mage jumped above Noble Duelist, so right now, Infallible Mage is the default set, because it parses 116k, despite being a light armor set. You can do more than that, because New Arca parses 120k, but it's more focused on single target damage, and it's a medium armor set, so it requires your supports to provide more penetration. The old skill setup still works well, but you can make it better by front-barring Merciless Resolve, instead of Banner Bearer, moving Soul Harvest to backbar, and front-barring Summon Charge Ashnag Ultimate. Unlike the old setup though, this setup requires you to track the Empower buff, so it isn't as easy to play. And that's it for the update part. This build focuses on amplifying heavy attacks, with the Surgeon's Mail item set, Rakat's Void Mantle Mythic, and the Empower buff, sourced from the Might of the Guild passive, procced by constantly using Ulf's Contingency. It utilizes subclassing to replace a mostly redundant Dark Magic skill line, with much more powerful Assassination. You'll be able to find logs from a bunch of veteran trials I did with this build, in the description, and on the website guide. Speaking of which, the build is also on my website, so if you prefer written guides over YouTube videos, you can read it there instead. The link will be in the description. The three skills we're going to use are Sorcerer's Stormcalling, Sorcerer's Daedric Summoning, and Nablet's Assassination. Stormcalling has the Energized and Amplitude passives, which will increase our damage by a decent amount. Daedric Summoning has pets. And then Assassination has lots of extremely powerful passives, the Soul Harvest ultimate, and we can use Merciless Resolve, either passively on the backbar, just for the Major Savagery in Prophecy, or actively on frontbar, because it deals a lot of damage. Moving on to skills. This is the base setup that will work for most situations, and which should be your starting point when making situational setups. It is also a very easy setup with very few active abilities, which makes it so you don't have to keep track of your Empower buff, so playing it is just as easy as playing with the Oakensnow Ring. Ulf's Contingency, with the Shock, Lingering Torment, and Force combination on it, is your source of the Empower buff, which increases damage done by heavy attacks by 70%. Since Ulf's Contingency is a Mage's Guild skill, it will trigger the Might of the Guild passive, which grants you Empower for 10 seconds. It also deals decent damage on AoE and grants you the Minor Force buff, increasing your critical damage by 10%. Ulf's Contingency is delayed until the next skill cast, but whenever it's needed, you can activate it early by bashing your enemy. If you cast this ability as you're finishing your heavy attack, the Empower you gain from it will start working just in time to boost the final tick of that heavy attack you just finished. Daedric Prey increases damage done by your pets by 50%, and deals AoE damage at the end. Next we have Summon Volatile Familiar, an ability that summons a pet, which can be reactivated to deal damage and AoE around this pet for 20 seconds. Next we have Summon Twilight Matriarch, an ability that summons a pet, which can also be reactivated to heal 2 friendly targets. Banner Bearer, with the Magic, Cavalier's Charge and Berserk combination on it, increases your magical damage done by 6%, grants weapon damage based on your movement speed, and grants Minor Berserk. You can change Berserk script to Heroism, if you can rely on your healer to provide the Minor Berserk buff. Soul Harvest is a cheap ultimate that increases target's damage taken from you by 20%. You need it on your front bar to trigger passives as the Assassination skill line. Having it slotted will also cause you to regain 10 ultimate whenever you deal a final blow against an enemy. Bound Aegis is an ability that will passively grant us Minor Resolve and Minor Protection, increasing our survivability. Concealed Weapon is an ability that will passively grant us 15% movement speed, which will grant us 90 weapon and spell damage, thanks to the Cavalier's Charge script on the Banner Bearer. Merciless Resolve is an ability that will passively grant us Major Savagery and Prophecy, increasing our critical chance. So that was the base setup, but now I'm gonna show you a bunch of situational skills, which you can use to tailor this base setup to specific fights. Daedric Prey is the first skill that has to go when you need to slot something situational, unless the situational skill specifically says that it's replacing something else. Elemental Blockade is your source of balance, if supports aren't providing it. It requires enemies to be concussed, so you'll have to use Shock Enchant to proc it, or rely on your teammates for that. Next we have Elemental Susceptibility. Use it as your source of major breach, whenever you're assigned to mechanics that separate you from your group, like for example Portal in the Navintas fight, Reef Hearts in the Reef Guardian fight, Bridge in the Teleria fight, etc. Then we have Summon Twilight Tormentor. This morph deals a bit more damage than the Summon Twilight Matriarch morph, but you lose access to the heal. It is an option depending on what you're trying to achieve. Use it if you don't mind sacrificing a backup heal for a bit more damage. Now let me show you a few other setups. This is a setup which uses more active abilities, which does more damage, but requires you to keep track of the Empower buff. Merciless Resolve replaces Banner Bearer. Summon Charge Atronach Ultimate replaces Soul Harvest Ultimate. It's possible because now Merciless Resolve is proccing Assassination skill and passives, which require you to have an Assassination skill slotted. Soul Harvest is now slotted as a Backbar ultimate, as it triggers the passive, which causes you to gain 10 ultimate on kills. And this is an example of a self-sufficient setup, which you should use when your supports aren't providing the crucial off-balance debuff. Elemental Blockade replaces Daedric Prey, so that you can apply off-balance yourself. Now as for rotation, I don't use a static rotation, so this is just a list of priorities. Simply recast abilities when they run out, and follow the list of priorities when there are multiple things to refresh. Use Ulce's Contingency if your Empower is out, or if it's going to run out by the end of the heavy attack you're channeling. Use your front row ultimate, either Soul Harvest or Summon Charge Atronach whenever it's ready. Use Daedric Prey, use Summon Volatile Familiar, use Merciless Resolve if you have it slotted on front bar, and if you have at least 5 stacks. If enemy is above 50% HP, use Summon Twilight Tormentor, but only if you're using the Tormentor morph, and use Ulce's Contingency as a filler. Now as for passives, I am now very quickly going through all of the passives you should get on the screen. You can either pause the video or look up this list on the website guide. This is the base setup that will work for most situations and which should be your starting point when making situational setups. So Infallible Mage, Surgeon's Mail, Rakat's Voidmantle Mythic, and One Piece Slamcrow. When choosing different situational sets, you can only replace Infallible Mage. Surgeon's Mail and Rakat's Voidmantle are too strong and too crucial for this build to ever be replaced. If you want to use a medium armor set, you have to make sure your group is providing enough penetration. Infallible Mage parses 116.1k DPS, which is only 4k lower than the top setup, which uses Slivers of Nularca. But Slivers of Nularca is focused on single target damage, and it's a medium set, so when using it, you have to make sure your supports are providing you with enough penetration. And because of that, Infallible Mage is the most practical set. Now, this is a list of situational gear. Sul'Zan's Torment is the best set for trash packs, and for bosses that regularly spawn smaller adds. Slivers of Nularca is the best set for single target damage. Stormmaster is an extremely volatile set which parses between 119k and 109.6k DPS. Use it if you like gambling. Now this is a list of alternative gear, so gear that is easier to obtain and can be used while you work towards the best gear. As for crafted gear, we have Order's Wrath and Towerkill Strike. As for dungeon gear, we have Noble Duelist, and as for gear coming from PvP, we have Deadly Strike. You can use the Flame enchant instead of Shock if your supports are providing off balance. Now let me show you a bunch of examples of final setups you could end up with. This is a setup made with just crafted gear, which uses Order's Wrath, Towerkill Strike, and 2-piece Assassin's Guile for the crit chance bonus. It parses 80.6k DPS, although a huge majority of this DPS loss stems from lack of Surgeon's Mail. Next, this is a setup you should use if you don't have access to any trial gear. Noble Duelist replaces Infallible Mage, and the setup parses 113.7k DPS. Next, this is a setup you should use if you don't have access to the Rakat's Voidmantle Mythic. Until Mirror's Construct replaces Rakat's Voidmantle and Slamcrow. A setup similar to this, with Slivers of Nularca instead of Infallible Mage, parsed 112.9k DPS. And this is the best setup for single target damage. Slivers of Nularca replaces Infallible Mage. This setup parses 120.5k with the min-max skill setup. Keep in mind, you have to make sure your supports are providing enough penetration if you want to use this setup, because Slivers of Nularca is a medium armor set. Moving on to champion points. In the blue tree you want to use Weapons Expert, which increases light and heavy attack damage by 20%, Deadly Aim, which increases single target damage by 6%, Wrathful Strikes, which increases your weapon and spell damage by 205, and Exploiter, which increases damage against off-balance enemies by 10%. Replace Wrathful Strikes with Fighting Finesse if you aren't at the critical damage cap, for example because you're using light armor, or because your supports aren't providing enough buffs. In the red tree, you want to use Bond's Vitality, which increases your max health by 1400, Fortified, which increases your armor by 1731, Celerity, which increases your movement speed by 10%, and Rejuvenation, which increases all of your recoveries by 90. Moving on to race. The difference between best and worst race is about 5% of DPS, and there is no content in the entire game that you'd be blocked from completing because of choosing a bad race. With that said, the best races for 12-man content are High Elf and Dark Elf. The best race for 4-man content is Khajiit. Other decent options are Orc and Breton. Moving on to Mundus. Most of the time, you should use the 5th Mundus, which increases your critical chance. The Lover is an option if you're using medium armor and your group isn't providing enough penetration, but a light armor set combined with the 5th Mundus is always going to be stronger. As for attributes, it's extremely simple. You should always put all 64 points into Magicka. Moving on to food. Most of the time, you should use the Arteon Pickled Fish Bowl, which increases your max health and max Magicka. Solitude Salmon Millet Soup is a cheaper alternative. For dummy parsing, you can use Tomato Garlic Chutney, which gives you only max Magicka. Moving on to potions. Use the Spell Power potions. They'll provide Major Sorcery and Major Prophecy, which are crucial buffs. You can craft them by combining Lady's Smoke, Namira's Rot, and Cornflower. Moving on to Parse. This is the highest Parse, done with the Null Arca set and the min-max skill setup. This is a Parse with Infallible Ether, 116.1k DPS. Noble Duelist, 113.7k DPS. Only Crafted Gear, 80.6k DPS. Deadly Strike, 115.6k DPS. Ansul Stormant, 113k DPS. Destructive Mage, 109.2k DPS. Null Arca but with the easy rotation, 119.2k DPS. Order's Wrath, crafted in lightweight, 111.5k DPS. Order's Wrath, crafted in medium weight, 110.4k DPS. Reliquien, 116.3k DPS. Stormmaster with good RNG, 190k DPS. Stormmaster with bad RNG, 109.6k DPS. Tideborn Wildstalker, 107.4k DPS. Antilmir's Construct with Null Archon Body, 112.9k DPS. And Oaken Soul with Null Archon Body, 103.1k DPS. Not all Parses use gear that's worth getting. Some Parses, such as Oaken Soul and Tideborn Wildstalker, were done to debunk common misinformation, because these sets are wrongly regarded as good for heavy attack builds. You can find a link to the recording of the 120k Parse in the description and on the website guide. And that's it for this video. If you have any more questions, you can comment down below or join our Discord server Wildheart. As always, feedback will be appreciated. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to my channel and check out my Twitch. Thanks for watching and see you next time.